Hello YouTube, Jangel here. Today we're going to be doing a Wuthering Waves tier list. It will not just be how much I'm gooning over these designs, and this will be focused entirely around Yanlin for the most part, and how she changes each of these characters. We all know that she can basically buff every single character in the game, but obviously there are going to be certain characters that benefit more from her existing than others. So it will drastically change their tiers. And of course, I have played every single one of these characters except Qinzi and Zhengli because they're not out yet. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So we have Alto going first. Alto's actually really good in my opinion, especially because of his outro skill, which increases arrow damage bonus for the next character. The reason why that's so good is because of Zhang Jin. So if you don't have Zhang Jin, you're missing out. She's easily one of the best characters in the game. She can heal, she can shield, and she has a ton of DPS, and she has crowd control. She is simply one of, if not the best characters in the game. Only overshadowed by like one or two characters. Jian, of course, also Wind, also really good character. He does do a little bit more damage than Jian Jin, but I mean, he just doesn't have the utility she has. So with all that in mind, and the fact that Alto is simply just good on his own, he has pretty decent damage, and on top of that, his forte allows him to basically just travel around invincible. I mean, you literally can't be touched, and then when you get out of it, it's homing missiles onto the enemy. Very good character. I'd say he's at least A tier. I mean, yeah. He doesn't go any lower than that. And if he sees any buffs or anything, I could see him even going up to S tier for sure. Next, we have Baizhi. Okay, so my take on Baizhi is going to be a lot different from what you've seen everywhere else. I don't think she's as good as people hype her up because she really needs all-out healing to do literally anything. Like, she has to be a healer and nothing else, or she's garbage. We try to hybridize her from healing into damage and doing both, like, you're not getting any kind of worth out of that. You have to either focus on her HP and give her the healing set, or just go straight up damage. Now, that being said, she can do some pretty good damage, and obviously her heals are very good. And she has 3 different kinds of heals on top of that, right? Her outro heals the next character. She has her resonance skill, which heals all characters. And her ultimate also restores health to all team members. So she just has 3 different ways to heal. She has a lot of healing available, but that's really all she has to offer. You have to go one or the other. Trying to do both is just not going to work out. With that in mind, I'm gonna go ahead and put her in B. She can fit on any team and do good, but there are better supports, right? Like, looking at other supports, you've got Zhang Jin. She can do everything. Okay, do I need to say anything else? You have Verena. Okay, outright way better than Baizhi, straight up. All right, her heals are good, her damage is better, and she also has the outro skill that just buffs damage. I would say Tao Qi is not quite as good, but it really depends on how you set her up. She can be an absolute unit. She can be an absolute unit. If you know what you're doing and you get those shields up, she is going to carry your team. But at most, I would say she's at Baizhi's level or maybe a little above. And then you've got Spectral Rover, who can heal with their ultimate once you get that resonance point unlocked. So she doesn't really stand out among any of these, right? Because they all bring healing and something else. So she's going to sit at B. Next we have Calcharo. Now Calcharo is my main DPS, personally. But he did see massive nerfs with the whole you can't switch out with and keep the buffs thing anymore. But his damage is still really good. It's just like, the problem is testing him out, like him and Zhang Jin, right? because those are two characters that I like to use on my team a lot. So when I used them as trial characters, they did basically the same damage. Like, their damage was very similar. It's actually insane. Which is, in fact, even on my own team, I have Calcharo built way more than Xian Jin, and yet Xian Jin will do similar damage. It's pretty crazy. Probably going to be showing video of that right now. Yeah. So he's good. I'm not saying that his damage isn't good, but he's not top tier. Like, he's not the best of the best, right? I'm going to put him in S. Because there's so many ways for you to buff him, though, right? So, like, by himself, he's definitely not top tier. Like, just, there's no way, if you're putting him by himself, no buffs, right? He's down here. But with buffs, because of the way his damage is completely focused on his Resonance Liberation, right? So you have multiple people who can buff him. Verena can buff him. Yinlin can buff him a lot. And Xian Jin can buff him. Now, I might be forgetting another character that can buff him, but those three, at the very least, can buff him, because Xian Jin, guess what, has an outro that increases Resonance Skill Liberation damage. So he has 3 different supports. Well, we'll get to Yinlin, how Yinlin isn't actually a support, but he has 3 different characters that can buff his damage insanely, so he obviously has to be up here. With just his normal damage, like his normal damage, he'd probably be an A. But with all of that, definitely S. Chixia, garbage. Garbage character. Garbage. Absolute trash character. She leaves herself open way too much for her Forte skill, which is basically just Devil May Cry 3 Dante shooting, and then like a slight explosion. Her damage is meh. Her Resonance Liberation, her ultimate, it's meant to target multiple enemies, so when you're fighting a boss, you're getting extremely subpar damage because not every shot is hitting the boss. She's just a terrible character. Overall, she's just a terrible character. Alright, next we have Donjin. Now, normally, because of the risk that she poses and because her damage was slightly nerfed, I would put her in like B. But once you get Havoc Rover and you're able to buff Havoc Rover with her, A. Easily A. Maybe even S. I would be tempted to put her in S. I would need to look into it a little more, but like just how she performs on my team, not even fully leveled, definitely A, at least. And the team that I use with her is literally her, Havoc Rover, and Tauchi. And I'm gonna get in, again, we'll get into Tauchi in a second, but yeah, she performs very well. Encore. Okay, so my problem with Encore, and I have to put her lower than I want to put her, and I'm gonna explain why. When I was trial running her in the event, every single time I tried to use her charged Forte ability where she explodes, like she does the little angry thing and then explodes, nothing would happen. Like, she would go into the animation, I would switch out, and then nothing would happen. And then I watched videos to make sure that I wasn't losing my mind, and other people who have her would do the same thing, and she explodes and does damage. She's supposed to explode and do damage, but for me, she wasn't doing that. Now, those videos that I watched were older than like current patch, so maybe they bugged her. Maybe she's bugged. I'm not sure. But as far as her damage, because that is such a big part in her kit, in my opinion, I have to put her. Yeah, I'd have to put her in B. Yeah, she's got to be in B. She's got to be in B. Because like she literally just gets no damage out of it. Like it just doesn't work. If a whole part of her kit just doesn't work, then I can't put her higher than B. That just doesn't make any sense. Xian Jin, broken. She's actually one of the only 2 characters in the game that I would consider completely broken. She has a good amount of damage. She has CC. She has shields. She has healing. What? She has super armor. What the fuck? And she has a built-in counter. You don't even need to learn how to parry. She has a built-in counter. This character has literally everything and excels at all of it. Even with just a little bit of HP built, right? So for comparison, with just 1 HP piece on her. And I had the wind damage set. Full wind damage set. She was healing for the same amount that Baizhi was healing, and I had on Baizhi every single echo piece I had for HP, and I had her for the healing set, full healing set. And she was healing the same amount as Baizhi. That's absolutely insane, especially when you consider that you have the shield on top of that. That's absolutely broken. Yeah, no, there's literally no argument that you could say where she is not broken. She's completely broken. Xion, okay. Xion is a very strong character, and I don't think I can put him lower than S. The issue I have with putting him in S is because it makes it seem like he's equal to Calcharo. So I kind of want to make a new rank for A+, and just like have him sit there alone, because I don't think anyone else would go in there. Yeah, I might just do that. No. Wait, hold on. No. Because if you max out his gauge and then ult, his damage is pretty good. His ult damage on its own is pretty good. It also kind of acts as a barrier to bosses. Yeah, definitely S. He has his own like sort of utility, and that just makes him really good. Okay, Ling Yang is next. Now, before I go into him, I just want to say, I really like Ling Yang. I very much like his playstyle. His design leaves some things to be desired, but his playstyle is very fun. The idea is very fun. The problem is, for smaller enemies at least, I have found that he'll just go right over them. He'll just go right over them. Like, he literally just will not even hit the enemies. If they're medium-sized or above, he'll hit them, no problem. But for like small ones, those little groundhog things, or moles, or whatever they are, or little rock guys, or any of those really small enemies, he just goes right over it. And I get that that's not that big of an issue, but it's not his only issue, is the problem. He's also just bad against bosses. No boss is gonna sit there and let you do that shit. You just can't. You're not gonna get your full combo off or anything like that. The boss is going to smack the shit out of you, and you're gonna like it, or you're gonna cancel that goddamn combo and get the fuck out. And then you're gonna have to try and do it all over again. No. So, with all that being said, C at best, actually, I kind of want to be with chicks. And the reason is, they kind of do the same. Like, they have the same issues, except that he misses attacks, but because his normal damage can kind of make up for that, they kind of just have this, they just kind of have the same issues. Mortefi is very good. If I recall correctly, he also increases heavy attack damage, which helps a lot of characters. If I'm not mistaken, that will help Donjin. That should help Donjin. That should help Rover, both versions, as well as Sanhua, as well as Tao. You get the point. It helps a lot of characters. Hey, just for that, just because of his outro, helping a shit ton, but also because of the way that he can do damage when he's not out, and that's huge. And I'm pretty sure, unless I'm just hallucinating when this happens, but that effect stays even if you switch to the next character after. So he just has really good off-field damage, which not many characters have right now. Rover, ooh, yeah, Havoc Rover, easy S tier, easily. In fact, because of Dreamless, no, actually no. No, not with Yinlin in the game, no. But because of Dreamless, definitely better than Xion in my opinion. Her damage is absolutely insane, and with Dreamless on your active slot, your damage is just gonna go crazy. Like, I have the only two characters I have fully built are her and Calcharo, and sometimes she can just straight up out damage Calcharo, even with Calcharo's buffs that I give him. All she needs is Dungeon's buff, and she's just like out damaging him at times. She is in the Rover. Havoc Rover is insane. Just in terms of damage. She doesn't really have anything else going for her except for damage. She doesn't have any utility or anything. It's just a pure damage character. And that brings her all the way to S, in my opinion. Okay, so next we have Spectro Rover. So Spectro Rover is gonna be in B. And the reason is because she doesn't do anything very well. In fact, she's gonna be the top of B. I cannot put her in A with these 3 goated ass 4 stars. There's no way. But definitely the top of B at least. If I had a B+ rank, I might put her there. But, and the only reason, damage is okay, but it doesn't really shine. She can heal with enough constellations, but the heal isn't immense. Like, it's not huge or anything. And then the time slow is good, but it doesn't affect bosses, which is the main content of the game anyway. And yes, I know, bosses are the main content of the game, but why is the Ling Yang down here when his broken shit? Because his damage doesn't work, remember. Just remember, I also said his damage doesn't work against bosses. He's just gonna get interrupted. Alright? Both. Anyway, Spectral Rover, definitely not in the A tier, but no way lower than B tier. Sanhua C. Like, this is the staple average character, along with, you know what, might as well. I'm just kidding. She just, like, what is she? Her exploding ice, like, okay, her kit is badass. Let me tell you something. Her kit is badass, okay? You can put down ice upon entrance with your resonance skill and with your ultimate. And then you can use your heavy attack to explode the ice as long as you time it correctly. So you're gonna do massive damage with your your heavy attack, and then the exploding ice will do extra damage. The more ice you have there, the bigger the area that you have to hit is, right? So it makes it easier to hit it. The more ice you have, like the easier to time the heavy, the more ice you have, and the more damage the exploding ice will do. So she's a very fun character to use, a very easy character to use, but she's just not very good. Like if you only are exploding like one thing of ice to get it off over and over again, she's not very good. If you do them all at the same time, it will be some good burst damage, but then like, what are you gonna do? Like, she can't do anything after that. She literally can't. For a good, I believe her cooldown on her resonance skill is like 5 seconds or something. She can't do anything. And you can't just, like, again, for her maximum damage, you would have to bring her in, resonance skill, ult, and then heavy attack, while all of that's still in the field. After you do all of that, you could wait a couple of seconds and resonance skill again, and then heavy attack. You're not gonna have your ult, so you're gonna be getting at most 1/3 of the damage. It's just not worth it. It's just not. Yeah, her damage isn't that great. Next, we have Dao Qi. I was going over her earlier, and I will once again base her. I'm basing these characters off of the trial data. I don't want to base them off of my builds. I'm basing them purely off of the trial versions, because the trial versions are going to be relatively equal to each other. However, with Dao Qi, I'm just going to say it's not going to go into where I put her, but I have her in my Havoc Rover team along with Dungeon. And the way I use her is pretty easy, okay? So first, I pop her skill to give me damage reduction, and then I'll use her counter. Now, after you use her counter, you'll gain her charge, and you can use the heavy attacks to gain a shield. Then I pop Impermanence Heron, which is what I use as her set. Because her set, energy recharge set, I forget what it's called. I think it's like Sunset Cloud or something. Fucking terrible with names, by the way. But I'm terrible with names. Not that the name is terrible. But I have that full set on her, because the second part, when you have 5 pieces of that set, when you switch off of her, the next character gains like a 40% damage boost or some crazy shit like that, right? But on top of that, Impermanence Heron also, with its skill, right, after using it, the next character will also gain a damage buff. So you literally pop her skill, gain the damage reduction to make sure that you're not taking too much damage, counter, gain the shield, pop Impermanence Heron, then switch. And now your next character, which should be Don Jin in this case, and I'll explain why in a second, is gaining like almost a 60% damage buff. It's actually broken. Then you use Dan Jin. She has insane damage to begin with. She's got the shield now. So she's not, even if you use up all of her HP, you're probably not going to die unless you're fighting a hologram boss, in which case you want to be a little more careful with her HP drain to begin with. Anyway, and then once you get your damage off and the damage buff wears off, you just switch to Rover. She's going to give Rover an extra 15%, I believe, half damage. I believe it's 15%. And this is the only real way, like, this is how you optimize your damage with that team. Because if you go from Tao Chi to Rover, yes, Rover is going to one-shot Rover could probably one-shot a boss with that much damage boost. You literally just ult and then Dreamless, and that boss should be dead. The problem is, if the boss is higher level, like with the holograms, it's not gonna die. It's not gonna die. And then what are you gonna do? You're gonna switch from Rover to Don Jin. Don Jin doesn't get any kind of buff, no shield, no nothing. Like maybe a shield if you didn't get hit, but you're probably gonna get hit. I mean, unless you're just a god. But then if you're a god, then why are you using fucking shield anyway? You wouldn't need the shield. I just like Chao Chi, and I might as well use her shield while I'm at it. But like if you're good enough to just never get hit by the holograms, you don't need a shielder. You should just use a different character. Because you could use a different character like Verena or something, get an even bigger damage boost. There's no point in using Tao Chi at that time. Yeah, like that would be the rotation. It's extremely it's very, very, very strong, by the way. Very strong. However, the character herself goes into C for sure. Yes, her shields are huge, but they require a very specific way of playing. Like, first off, just countering the enemy's attacks will not actually net you the charge. It has to be countered at a specific charge rate of your heavy attack. Or you can just charge the heavy attack fully without getting hit. And then you have to counter the next time. And then you get that full 3 heavy attack combo to get the shield. It's very complicated. It's just convoluted for no reason. They need to simplify it into just being able to counter one time and then you get the full thing. But yeah, until they fix that, she's definitely C. Verena. Okay, so Verena. Just her outro skill and healing puts her in S. Just those 2 factors puts her in S. Her damage is subpar. I'm just gonna say it. Her damage is subpar, doesn't make any sense. Her basic attacks are super slow, but you need her basic attacks or her skill to build her charges to do her forte attack. So it's pointless. Like, yeah, you could do that, but like, she's so slow. You don't want her on the field for that long. You want to pop her in, probably just pop her ultimate for healing, and then pop her out for the outro damage boost. Like, you don't want her to be on the field forever. And usually, by the time you get like one of those 4 charges, I think it's 4 charges or 5 charges of her forte, you already have her outro skill up and her ultimate up. At least I did when I was just playing her in the trials. So no point in keeping her up that long. Her damage is subpar as hell because of that. But because that's not her main draw, like you're probably not using her as a DPS, none of that matters. Her healing and her buff is all that matters, and that puts her in S by herself. Yang Yang is definitely C. She has really cool animations, I guess, but her damage isn't very great. Just none of what she does, the damage is just not great. It's not there. I believe her outro skill is just damage. Those are the worst type of outro skills in my opinion, are the ones that just do damage. Like, it should have some type of buff or utility, or it's just garbage. Actually, thinking about that, Spectro Rover's outro slows down time too, along with the ult. No, because it doesn't affect bosses, she still stays in B. But yeah, Yang Yang, just the highest you can go with Yang Yang is C. She's just not very good. Yep. In fact, there you go. Yeah. Yinlin is broken. Yinlin is completely busted. Okay? No matter how you build her, she is fucking broken. Her damage is insane. Her range is insane. She has an insane buff. She buffs every fucking character in the game. But specifically, she can buff one of the best characters in the game for double, basically, because she's buffing Electro and normal damage. Like, what? So he just gets he gets put on steroids if she's swapping into him. On top of that, her damage alone is extremely high. Her combos are quick and fluid. There's no way, like, see, if Verena played like her, Verena might even go into SS, right? I might consider Verena broken if her basic attacks and everything else worked like Yinlin's do, because she is so damn slow, but Yinlin is the exact opposite. Yinlin's basic attacks are so quick that it is easy to get the whole group of enemies marked, then use your skill, and now you're just hitting like 8-10 enemies at once with every hit, and then you pop the skill again for the explosion, and then you use the chains, which is going to hit everything around you, and then at that point you should have her ultimate, so now you just pop her ultimate, and then you swap out, and everything's basically dead at that point anyway, but then you swap into Calcharo, and he's just going to one-shot everything. Like, what? She doesn't lack in anything. She does not lack in any area. She's just like Zhang Jin, but with more damage. Except she's not like Zhang Jin. She has all the damage in terms of a DPS, whereas Zhang Jin just has, like, she covers everything in the game. But yeah, I mean, like, you can use her as a sub DPS. I would say, instead of using her as a sub DPS, a good combo would actually be like her and then Sanhua and then Verena. And the reason is because Sanhua upgrades her outro, increases basic attack damage. In fact, now I kind of want to put Sanhua on B. Yeah, I have to put Sanhua on B now. I'm thinking about that because just her outro being so good for one of the best characters in the game also helps Zhang Jin, by the way, greatly. Like, cause she's all about her basic attacks, essentially. Like, you're using your basic attacks to mark them, and then once you use your resonance skill, you're still using your basic attacks, and it still counts as basic attack damage with resonance skill damage piled on top. So her buff will greatly help Yinlin, and then so will hers, right? So you could literally just swap from Sanhua to Yinlin, do the damage, buff wears out, swap to Verena, and then swap back. And then just keep going back and forth like that every time. Next is this guy. This guy is Pupuduki, but he's not so Pupuduki because of Yinlin. That's it. That's it. Like, normally he'd be down here. Alright, he'd be down here. Maybe like a little bit better than these guys, in my opinion. But with Yinlin, he's at least with these guys up here. He doesn't really have any utility. His skill is kind of butt cheeks. His ultimate is meh. Yeah. He just gets buffed by Yinlin. I mean, like, double buff from Yinlin is gonna make anybody decent. As for these two down here, honestly, here's my guess. Just, like, obviously, based off of these two being up here, these two are almost certainly gonna be S or SS. They're either gonna be extremely good top tier or broken. And I'm betting that their outro skills will buff their element respectively, because there are only 3 elements currently that don't have, out of the, 5 or 6? I believe it's Electro, Havoc, and Arrow all have buffs to their element directly, whereas Spectro, Glacio, and Fusion do not. I would assume that these two will buff those damages. It would suck though if that was the case. That shit would suck dick. It would make, if they fix Lin Yang going over enemies and make his attacks a little quicker, right? And then Jinxie actually buffs ice damage, then my god, he's gonna skyrocket. He would skyrocket up there, because now he has a buff for his ice damage and most of his problems are fixed. Same thing with Chixia, actually. If they made it so she could like kind of like jog while using her forte instead of walking slowly like a friggin' idiot, and then she buffs fusion damage, she'd actually be very good. Very, very good. And yeah, but I'm not gonna put them on here. I'm just saying my guess is probably around here or here. It's gonna be one of those two. But anyway, that's it. That's the tier list. Okay. If you liked, hit the like button. If you dislike, hit the dislike button. And of course, if you disagree with where I put these characters, let me know in the comments below. Tell me why. I will be checking, of course, because I'm curious to hear other people's thoughts. If you feel like me using the trial characters doesn't make any sense, go ahead and tell me your builds then in the comments, because I'd be curious to see what kind of builds people have come up with. I mean, obviously I get to see content creators' builds because you can just go on YouTube for that. But I'm talking like just, you know, non-content creator people who are just playing the game. I'd love to see you guys' opinions and what kind of builds you've made. With that being said, if you deign to subscribe, please hit the notification bell so that I know that I can take your mother out for dinner. And dinner won't be the only thing I'm eating that night. Bye-bye.